My last chore, not a chore, to introduce our roastmaster, our toastmaster, if you will. And I don't need notes for this because I've admired him for many years. I produced a television program in 1955, and Mr. Allen wrote the music and lyrics. And the theme song was "This Could Be the Start of Something New," and the love ballad was called "Impossible." So I recall that very well. I know, therefore, that he is a composer and a lyricist. I have read his books. He is a novelist. He is an essayist. He's a polemicist, if you will, if you know what that means. And I don't. He's a marvelous writer in every way, shape, and form. He's a radio and TV personality, of course, and a wonderful star. And I've always been struck by the fact that if he had not, he is, as you know, the originator of The Tonight Show, and if he had decided to stay, Johnny Carson would still be emceeing Do You Trust Your Wife? In any event, he is genuinely a man for all seasons, and we in New York feel particularly close to him because we tune in every day on WNEW. So in a way, he's back with us on a regular basis. Some of us have even bought radios again and put them on the desk in offices for that. Now, Mr. Allen was honored just May 3rd, a few days ago, by the Catholic Actors Guild. He received the George M. Cohan Award. And on May 13th, will receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Lifetime Comedy Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Allen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe, for those kind words. Well, we have a great deal to accomplish tonight, so I'll get right to it. The first order of business, we all have our personal priorities, as far as I'm concerned, concerns this handsome and no doubt very expensive watch, which was presented to me by the Friars as a gift. I didn't expect any gifts for doing this, but they did give me one. And so far, I've shown it to everyone on the dais, and none of us can figure out how to attach the handle so I can wear it on the strap. So if there is a jeweler in the house, this is not a comedy routine. I would really love to wear this watch, but until somebody shows all us dummies up here how you close the strap, that will be impossible. So if any of you jewelers would like to make yourselves useful, then sometime you'll see me on the street and say, "Hi, Steve, how's the watch?" I'll say, "Pretty good, Bob," and you know, they'll strike up a conversation. So we'll leave it right up there until we get some offers on that. I'd never thought of that, Joe, that if I had decided to continue doing the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson would still be doing Do You Trust Your Wife? I know that he doesn't trust his wife, usually over the years. Been repeated instances of that, but I never realized it was partly my fault. These proceedings of this general sort are delightful for a lot of obvious reasons. We're honoring a great and a talented guy, and the food was great, and the music was wonderful. All of that, as I say, is obvious. It's on the surface. But there are other reasons, not perhaps so obvious, but certainly no less important. And one of them is that events of this sort make for a social cohesiveness in our sometimes divided and distraught society. There are people here this evening of various races and religions. There are Jews and Gentiles. There are liberals and conservatives. There are Democrats and Republicans. There are nice people and schmucks. Don't laugh, a schmuck with money can do a lot of good in this world. So these things are important. If you don't understand any of these, just laugh when Buddy Hackett does. That's it. He has great taste in these things. Now, it's also a cliche for whoever a master of ceremonies is to say how wonderful it is to be here. Well, it is wonderful to be here. Frankly, I'll go anywhere to get away from rock music, so that was one reason I'm here, and I think, again, the band deserves a great hand. Mark Barron. Great. Despite the fact that this is truly as the saying goes, a star-studded dais, so far I've counted 9 stars and 14 studs, but despite that fact, not everyone who wanted to be here, of course, can be here, and we have some telegrams and letters from people who wish to be with us, but their hearts are with us. Very sweet note from Phyllis and Barry Diller, and some others we'll be getting to. Let's see, who else do we have? Telegrams from Jimmy the Greek, Jerry the Jew. A lot of interesting people have sent us telegrams, and we don't have to read them, but I think you know what they might have said. Speaking personally, as Joe was kind enough to tell you, I'm doing this daily thing just for kicks on WNEW, and it's great to be back in New York. I was born here. It's really my home, and I must say that it's that's all right. I must say it's a kind of a city that has a certain unique electric excitement. Things happen here that wouldn't happen anyplace else. You may not believe this, but I got in a taxi yesterday that was actually driven by an American citizen, and that doesn't... My announcer or sidekick or whatever he is, Mark Simone, who does a wonderful job on the WNEW show with me, he and I talk about various local problems, potholes and corruption, whatever the issue might be that's up in the day's news. And I'm making it my personal drive. I'm even forming an organizational basis to get Jews back into the delicatessen business because the Koreans are robbing us blind. It was never like that in the old days, I don't care how much money you have. You go into one of those places, oh my God, $48? It's just a terrible situation. Now, there were also, in addition to those, as I say, who had wanted to be with us but never were actually scheduled, there were some, as you've read the news reports, who actually were scheduled and unfortunately had to cancel out at the last minute. Among those was our dear friend Shirley MacLaine, who had to beg off when she discovered she had a previous engagement in the 18th century. It's easy to do these jokes about reincarnation and Shirley's fervent belief in it, and who knows, you can't prove a negative very often, maybe it's legit. I do know that I have known Shirley ever since she was a Cocker Spaniel, so it's perfectly possible, who knows. We also have a nice note here from Harry Reebok. Yes, the shoe man, that's right. And it's easy to laugh at his name, but I say never criticize Harry. It's an old Indian saying, never criticize Harry Reebok until you have walked a mile in his shoes. He's a wonderful, wonderful fellow. That wasn't such a wonderful joke, but he's a wonderful fellow. And then Don Rickles was supposed to be with us. Don, whose unique wit has shown us the warm side of hatred, had very much wanted to be with us tonight, but he couldn't make it. Last night he had the misfortune to run into an exorcist, so I'm sure you'll understand why he's not able to join us. And Sammy Kahn, perhaps the wealthiest songwriter in the business today, planned to be here, but he had to send the parody that you heard because he got a hernia picking up last month's royalty check. And Tita did a very good job of standing in for him, too. And incidentally, speaking of all the lovely ladies who are up here and all the even larger number that are out there, just a word of congratulations to the Friars for keeping up with the times and their very progressive attitude and having a mixed audience of this sort. I think any sensible person will always have been in favor of equal rights for women, especially on television, too, so that they have the same freedom of speech that we men have enjoyed. So we fought for that and we've achieved it, and look what it's gotten us, Dr. Ruth and Joan Rivers, but that's all right. But just speaking personally, and I suppose for Jane too, it's a kind of a sentimental thing to be back in New York and here tonight with this particular kind of audience. It's a little stroll down memory lane, you might say, because I don't know how else I would run one evening into so many wonderful people who I have not seen since they passed away, and I think that's a kind of a warming thing in these troubled times. It's also exciting to be here because where else could you ever run into Gene Bayless? The man is never seen any place except at a Friars dinner, and that's part of the whole fun. And I'll say this, Gene, a moment ago, isn't this true, Gene? He said, don't get up and do a lot of those stupid insult jokes. Give me a nice, warm invitation. So I'm doing that, Gene, because I do love this man. Really, I honestly do. I'm proud to be in the same business as Gene Bayless. Shows how little it takes to make me proud, but that is my sincere feeling. But it's really wild, isn't it, Red? Think hundreds, thousands of people here tonight to honor Red Buttons. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Yeah. Give him a hand. Right. Of course, these same people would stop to look at an automobile accident, but that's all right. They're here because they love it. Oh, and I hope you will not miss, I don't think many of you have, but in case you don't have all the light out there, take just a moment seriously. Take this home, study it. this is not a comedy routine. This is a beautiful cover painting, a handsome, lifelike portrait of Red Buttons, painted, of course, by Norman Rackham. And if you look at that, I think you'll understand why, in my opinion, Red Buttons is the only Jewish elf on earth. Always had that certain unique cuteness to him. Cute is always the word. It's possibly because of my own Irish background that, to me, he always looked like a tall leprechaun. I just had that, that personal interpretation of the man. But anyway, I think Jane adequately summed it up earlier this evening when we were getting dressed and thinking of what we were going downstairs to be involved with here, and she's actually said, for this, you had to shave, but she has an interesting way of looking at these things. If we kept you here this evening to tell you every facet of Red's career, you've just seen a little sampling of his motion picture experience, but if we told you all the wonderful work he's done over the long span of years, well, we simply wouldn't be able to because it would be too much time. But suffice it to say that he started his career in burlesque, and just recently he was on The Love Boat, and these are two forms of entertainment that many people have considered vulgar and embarrassing, but not many people will hold that against him in any event. Now let me see, we have so many people here tonight, it's just we're not going to be able to even get to all of those. The one of Red's films that I thought he was terrific in all of those performances, but I think his most dramatic performance, as you saw here, was in the Poseidon Adventure, and he was very clever. He was one of the few survivors in that dramatic story because he had the good sense to grab onto the only bulky object that was floating, Shelley Winters. People think, because those of you who've been around for a good many years and were in, so to speak, on the beginning of Red Button's career, you think he's an old man, but that's just a false impression that you get when you come up close to him. He's actually as youthful as ever. And he's as busy in the business as ever, too. He comes to us from a fabulously successful series of personal appearances in newspaper ads for Florida real estate. But to return to Gene Bayless, and I know Red will agree with me. Again, Gene did say in all seriousness, don't do a lot of those crazy roast insults because he has a kind of a tender ego. But he is not only one of the funniest, but one of the best loved men in show business. And that gives you an idea of the... I'm talking about Gene in this case, Red. I look at you to see if you're listening, but I'm talking about him.